Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. It's already 1:30, so you guys go ahead. Carry on.
Thank you. We're off a pre-grid now, Mike, onto the racetrack.
Let's do it. The track is hot, sir.
That's right. Hey, it's great to see you.
Good. Thank you. Back at you.
I think we have to clue in this audience that we actually know each other pretty well and have had the pleasure of being co-conspirators since we produced Sports Car Magazine for the SCCA, and we're on Team SCCA. So forgive my cheerleading.
Sir, and we just got our new shipment of November, December Sports Car Magazines. Just had to get that plug in there, and they're fabulous. Yeah. So excited to have the year-end championship issue on all our members' desk.
Yeah, I haven't even seen it yet, so you've got me beat. But great, Mike. It's wonderful to spend time with you today and talk about really what's happened with SCCA in the past year since we last met here in this forum. And I think part of what we're going to talk about today too is the lessons you learned through the last 2 or 3 years that have shaped your business and your strategy going forward. But I think I always like to reset a little bit and get back to the beginning. A lot of our audience may not know your background and how you came to the SCCA and the moment you came in. So could you just give us a short run through your journey to leading this club?
Absolutely. Well, the brief, bright and gone summary is I met the club through my father, through family, like many folks inside the club. I grew up dating myself here, grew up in the passenger seat of a Datsun 2000 Roadster, an MGB GT, Austin Healey Sprite that my brother had, anything else I could get into. For some reason, my dad got out of sports cars as I became old enough to get my driver's license. Although I did take my driver's test in a pristine 1971 240Z. So I was infected early on. My dad raced SCCA Autocross and solo, grew up in Amarillo, Texas. We didn't have road courses, but we always followed SCCA national championship runoffs, especially my brother and I. We actually went out to several runoffs, not as drivers, not as crew people, but just as spectators, because we love sports car racing and the sports cars and the drivers. We just love the whole thing. And fast forward several years, I was not a member of the SCCA, although I was actively following it. And I noticed that there was an SCCA solo event at Texas Motor Speedway. I asked my beautiful bride, I said, babe, would you mind if I went out and played with cars? And she said, no, go do it. So I took my four-door Mazda Speed Protege, not exactly known for its speed or handling, and went out there and joined the fray with the Texas Region SCCA folks. And I'm afraid they set the hook, and I've been playing with the SCCA ever since. That led to an opportunity to throw my ring in the hat when the president CEO position became available. And several of my friends, you might have friends like this, Paul, they said, Cub, you can't drive worth a rep, but you use a lot of big words every now and then. So we think you might be qualified as a leader,
like my life,
potentially for the club. Raised my hand and by the good graces, fortunately landed this position and have been part of the leadership team here since 2017. So got here just in time to help navigate a global pandemic. So there we go.
Good timing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And, I think sometimes fate delivers us to where we're supposed to be.
Well, I tell you what, I have been through, I was leading a company in 2008 through one of the greatest, largest recessions since the Great Depression. That same company, unfortunately, we also had a 4-alarm fire that burned down our physical plant completely. So I've been through a couple of force majeures, but nothing will prepare you for what happened in 2020, right?
Yeah, right.
And so that's kind of the bad news. The good news out of that, though, is as I've been listening into a lot of industry leaders through your webinar series this week, it's a pretty dedicated, pretty committed, pretty resilient bunch. And we might get down a lap, but we fight like hell to get back on the lead lap, right? And I'm happy to say that the SCCA at this point in time, fighting back from 2020, is back on the lead lap. Our membership has never been stronger. We have more full-time members than we've ever had in the recent history of the club. And we're moving forward with some exciting things. So while, yeah, I mean, there's inflation running rampant. There's all kinds of things that we need to be aware of and try to plan in and around and be cognizant of as we're leading businesses. But I still believe that 2023 can be a great year for all of us in the motorsport space.
Well, and again, thank you as someone who's lived my life in the SCCA and through the SCCA. Thank you for what you and the national office team did, and all of our members, fellow members in the field did to bring this club through it. And we're all a bunch of goofballs that just want to go play with our cars. So that,
Amen, brother. I'm with you.
But the thing that's exciting is that I've seen profound evolution of the SCCA during the last few years to become something that I think it's always had the potential to be, but be more accessible to more people by what its primary proposition is. And, the SCCA that I came into, I was as a young person coming into it at a time where the echo of the 60s was still in the air, and the feeling of, Americans going to Le Mans and Formula One out of the SCCA was still very present. Club racing was at this near professional level in some classes, with factory teams and a very serious intent to move into the realm beyond, to a moment now where there was a lot of competition at the grassroots level of racing. And there are a lot of product offerings out there for people to get on track, but SCCA is doing it in a way that it's just plain fun. And you have programs that have a different level of commitment than having a trailer or a full setup race rig to take your stuff to a racetrack. Right. Can you tell us a little bit about that evolution that's been taking place?
No, that's a great segue. I mean, relative to some of the other industry leaders that have been on the series this week, I mean, we're really participant based. Do we have spectators? Absolutely. But we're really, as the largest amateur grassroots motorsports sanctioning body in the US, we're really more focused on engaging amateurs in motorsports across what I call the SCCA buffet, which is everything, to your point, from road rally to autocross and solo, to time trials, to track night in America, to full-on club racing, into the ultimate pinnacle for us, which is the SCCA National Championship runoff. So and every one of those user groups, if you will, have different desires, different things that they're looking for in their experience, and our overarching goal is to deliver the best motorsports experience we can to enthusiasts, focusing on that amateur cadre of young participants across all of our programs. And so we've really been focusing for the last 3 or 4 years really on experience and engagement, right? So to your point, how do you drive and experience engagement through products and programs? Well, Track Night in America was specifically developed and deployed to help lower the barriers of access, get more people with regular street cars, not full-on comp cars, on a track, kind of a bucket list, check the box kind of life kind of thing. And that program, Paul, over 5 years has gone from 0 participants to over 10,000 per annum. And roughly in size and value to the club, it's like having a SCCA National Championship runoff at Indianapolis Motor Speedway every year. So it's a big deal. More important than the financial aspect and or the participation population aspect is who that kind of program is attracting. Yeah. It's attracting, to your point earlier, folks who are not maybe not the previous typical suspect or prospect for the SCCA, right? It's a lot of folks who maybe didn't grow up like you and I with family and deeply invested in sports cars. We've got folks who show up at a track night in a Volkswagen Beetle, and I mean, as long as they've got a helmet and a seatbelt, they can get on track. And not throwing any shade at Volkswagen Beetles, I happen to like them. I'm just saying that you can go from that all the way up to a Corvette C8 and all points in between. So it's really was designed to be low barrier of entry, high level of engagement, focusing on the experience. And that's why I'm proud to say that we do our own poor man's version of Net Promoter Score, And across 150 events in 2022, the likely to recommend rating, which is a combination of top 2 box overall experience for Track Night in America, is 98. So 98% of the folks who participated in that program said based on their experience, they're likely to refer that. I got to tell you, if all of our programs were running at 98%, we'd have to buy a bigger office space. We'd have to build more technology to house all our members, because we'd be 2X in this thing. And I think that that kind of concept is one reason why we're seeing membership growth rebound post-COVID as aggressively as it has. It's just that there's more options to be involved.
And we see it as well by, of course, the magazines we mail, and noticing the steady increases in the full household membership mailings that we're doing. So it's great to see this return of energy just almost immediately.
Yeah, no, it's fun.
When there was a little bit of opening in a crack in the window, if you could, to get outside and play, SCCA members went out and did that. And we're an obsessive bunch. The other thing I think that I want to talk about a little bit today, if people are not familiar with the SCCA in our audience or watching this later, the SCCA has historically been the backbone of professional racing, not on just the racetrack itself, on the surface of the track, but in the many volunteers who support the activities that make racing possible in the U.S.
Right.
They're referred to sometimes as the workers, but what they are the very specialized groups of people that deal with all aspects of operating and safely running an event. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, I think, I'm a mid-pack hack when it comes to racing cars. And I'm also probably a parallel incompetency corner marshal. I will say this, quick shout out to my partner in crime, Mr. John Doonan, whom I know is someone you know quite well.
Yes.
John and I did get to co-marshal turn 3 at Road America this past June at the June Sprints. And I have a little bias, Paul, but I think we did fabulously. We didn't create any on-track incidents or slow anything down, and it was an absolute blast. But the reason I mentioned John is not only because he's a great friend and a great leader inside the sports car industry within North America. SCCA is actually partnered with IMSA and John to really kind of define how we might work together to better attract, retain, and train the next generation of volunteers. In fact, it's so fun. I'm talking to you today. We're working on, I have a bazillion acronyms because that's the way I speak, but we're working on launching our new LMS system, our learning management system. And one of the first modules of training that is delivered with sight, sound, and motion is our new FNC Marshall training course. Happy to say that I think there's a shot of John and I inside that course. But anyway, the real point there is we're going online to digitally train folks, where we used to hand them a notebook that was 3 to 5 inches thick in a morning meeting at 5 a.m. and say, okay, let's get through this real quick and then we'll put you out on a station. Where we're going with this is, hey, Mike Cobb, if you want to flag at the runoffs and or Road America or any event next year, you need to get your FNC license. And the catalyst to getting that license is taking this certification course online through SCCA Academy and being invited out to the dance. But so I'm showing up out there at the track, not as an experienced corner marshal, but with training before I get there. Yeah. And then once I get there, the seasoned veterans who are out there who work those corners are the folks who are going to really kind of help us take it to the next level. So I think a lot of those kind of efforts, and that's just one chapter in kind of the training and development book. Obviously, to your point, there's a host of disciplines required to put on a road race event: timing, scoring, grid, control, operations, et cetera, et cetera. They won't let me in the tower, Paul, so I have to work corners. And I love working corners because my thought is, if you can't drive an apex, get as close to one as you can. So
that's the only way I'm ever going to get close to an apex.
Working FNC is how we do that. So I'm really excited about that. And just to kind of show you the scope of that, the initiative that we're deploying, we actually applied and got some FIA grant funding to help support and launch that. So
Wow.
It's going to be done in a first-class fashion. It's totally evolutionary for the club. And as you know, that's the way folks learn in today's world, in a distributed world. It's growingly more and more online every day. And so that's going to be our new foundation for training.
Especially young people who consume how-to and background videos on things they're interested in. And this is a great doorway into our club and in the sport. You know, I speak from an experience where I literally grew up in the SCCA. That everything I am began with the club and the mentorship that I received at all levels of the club. You know, the journey was facilitated by the many great people I met that taught me about not just racing, but life and responsibility and all the things that come with that. So when I look at the fact that the SCCA is spreading its wings, if you will, to be more inclusive, less exclusive. This was a club when I joined, you had to have somebody recommend you and endorse you to be a member, which was particularly hard for me. But the thing we have now is a very different society, very different competitive landscape of what else is out there. And you know, there are other programs and other things that you're bringing to market, you know, that I have some visibility into, and you've experimented with some things. I'd like to talk about that. Not everything works, but some things do, like track night, home run. You want to just run down some of the other things so people can get an idea of the dimension of what SCCA is currently doing and trying?
I mean, one of the things we also launched this year, and I've heard this as kind of a repeated theme, listening to some of the other U.S. sanctioning bodies, folks like IndyCar and USAC, and just through conversations with John, is we're all challenged with, you know, how to improve that on-track experience for drivers and for workers. But one of the things that we did this year to help kind of improve that for our racers, we launched a initiative called Green to Checker. And the end game of that is to really drive more track time, obviously green to checker, start to finish, right? Less offs, less toes, less wrecks, providing more driving space, racing space on track, you know, all of those kinds of things. We launched that this year, and that is, we're starting to see by tracking the data based on the number of incidents at core events, we're starting to see a positive lift based on that. So I think going forward, again, going back to where I kind of opened the conversation today, Cobb, what is the SCCA focused on going forward? While we deliver a lot of different programs, two variables that are constant and common across all those variables are experience and engagement. So that is taking off and working well. I will be transparent and respond to, hey, Mike, what was something that didn't work for you recently? And I'm not proud of this, but I tell you, we did try to, we had hoped to launch into the enduro market this year,
right?
With a championship and with a series, and this might be, you know, opportunistic speaking, or what Monday morning quarterbacking, or however you want to look at it. But I don't think we could have picked a worse year, Paul, to try to launch a new product into a mature market.
Yes.
Right. I mean, we're all battling $5, $6, $7 diesel. That market is stocked well with folks who are doing a very good job, whether it's AER, whether it's World Racing League, whether it's Lucky Dog, whether it's Champ Lemons. I mean, and forgive me for missing some folks, but very few of those folks are doing a poor job and leaving anything on the table. And what we found as we got closer to launching that, we got one event up and running. We got some great learning out of that. We've got a great, I think, classification framework out of that we're going to continue to grow and develop the enduro program with going forward. The learning out of that really kind of came to this is, at this point in time, we are not capable and ready to launch a nationally driven top-down program. We feel the better way to grow that going forward and to get into that space, which we're going to get into, is bottom work, working collaboratively with the regions. As you know, we have 115 regions across the club, and all of our road race regions are looking for additional ways to create higher degrees of engagement around their road racing weekends. And so we see the enduro product, especially the shorter duration enduro product, being something that can be additive to a club racing weekend, just like track event, just like time trials, et cetera, and really kind of attracts a broader audience, obviously creates a higher car count in terms of participation, which ultimately creates a positive cash flow story for the regions who are hosting those things. A quick example of kind of I will use a term and probably get in trouble for using it, but we call them mashups. So this year in 22, the Steel Cities region had a mashup that had a club race weekend, a time trials national tour event, a track night in America, a solo event, a road rally event, a driver's school, and a track event, all on a 3-day weekend. They had over 400 cars. The region did fabulous. We had sent national staff down there to be additional SWAT team boots on the ground to help support the region. And, when we asked the region executive and the leadership team down there, I know this was a big lift, but do you want to do it again? They absolutely said yes. So going forward, if you go to, well, Mike, what kinds of things might be in store for the club going forward? I would tell you, based on the success of those kinds of things and the ability to get exposure and engagement through those kinds of things, we're going to be doing more of those kinds of weekends going forward. Absolutely.
Well, that's exciting. There's a gravity to that. And there's a crossover power to that too. When people see what the other people are doing in the other areas they weren't aware of. I think it's interesting. We talk about the enduro space, and in a lot of ways, SCCA was doing the enduro thing before everybody else was. And as often happens,
right,
the pioneer in the space moves on and does something else, and somebody comes in and does it later, maybe better, maybe differently. But there are a few things that the SCCA has done particularly well that are difficult to replicate the secret sauce of what the SCCA does, and that's your solo programs. For me, I look at the magic of the solo nationals and kind of the cultural phenomenon that is. Could you talk a little bit about that for people who don't know what that is?
Absolutely. What a great segue. There is a great thing over the next 24 months. We're going to be celebrating not only our 80th anniversary in 24, I believe, but also in 23, we will have our 50th Tire Rack SCCA Solo Nationals in Lincoln, Nebraska. And as you recall, that's the largest amateur racing event in the world based on number of participants. Typically, It's around 1,250 plus folks on 100 acres of glorious concrete in Lincoln, Nebraska, of all places. And we'll be having our 60th SCCA National Championship runoffs at VIR, both of those occurring next year. But getting back to the solo piece, because that's what you asked about. I mean, that event is hard to replicate, because of the size, the scope, but also because there's I heard the previous industry leaders talking about kind of the culture that they were trying to build in some of the off-road racing experiences that they were developing. There is definitely, you've been to Solo Nats, there is definitely a culture there that is palpable, that is fun, that is fiercely competitive. I've heard it said that we go there to race for 6 minutes and we go there for a 5-day party and race for 6 minutes or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Of course, there is no drinking and driving, just to be very clear about that. But that is true. It is some of the fiercest driving competition in the solo world at one venue across 20 plus classes, and it is also a fabulous experience. Some of my favorite times at Solo Nats are really much like my favorite times at the runoffs. Early in the morning, when folks are up early working on their cars, getting stuff ready, and later in the afternoon when folks are working on the car. And then if you're really brave, later that night when there's quite a few extracurricular activities going on in the paddock at Solo Nats, some of which I can disclose publicly and probably some I can't. But anyway, it's an absolute happening and just one of the best experiences in the club. And again, back to kind of our overall experience likely to recommend ratings, I think Solo Nats this year was ranked somewhere in the high 90s, like probably a 95, 96. So the way we look at things is if we can continue to repeat programs and experiences where 9.5 to 9.9 out of every 10 people who participate say they'll refer it to someone else based on their experience, I think that's a pretty positive forecast for growth.
It sure is. And aside from the fact that I like to think of the Solo Direct Solo Nationals as a kind of like Burning Man with cones.
That's a pretty good analogy, I think. Absolutely.
It's pretty whack when I've been there. I've got to say it's fun. But the reality is that's what you're about, is fun.
Right.
And that's why I stayed and still love the club so much, is I've had a blast.
Yeah.
And I've met some of the very best people I could ever possibly meet through this club. And I came for the cars and I stayed for the people is a pretty common phrase I hear in the SCCA.
Absolutely. Yes.
And the thing I think we've got a couple of plugs I'd like to make. One is the mashup is happening again in August with Steel City's region next year. And then I want to mention the national convention upcoming.
Oh, absolutely. This next year in January 23, we'll be hosting our national convention, and we'll be doing it virtually so that we can get a lot more folks engaged. We have found this was one of the learnings out of COVID.
Right.
We didn't want to not get together, but we were precluded from getting together. So we pivoted and started trying the virtual conventions. This one will last for approximately a week and a half. And all of our general sessions, our annual meeting, all of our breakout sessions, all of that is available to folks 24/7, 365 via playback, just like this series right here, and available to stream real time. So excited about that. We've got some special guests already committed to join us for that event. And of course, on the Friday of the launch of that event, that's when we do our annual Hall of Fame. You might remember something like this, Paul.
Yeah, I showed up for that last year.
Yes, sir, you did. So we'll have Hall of Fame on Friday, Member of Excellence, Wolf Bernardo Award, a lot of things that are really important recognition moments for the club to recognize folks who've contributed so much to our success.
Well, again, it's if I'm going to say anything about this club, is it puts a smile on my face when I think about it. And you're one of the reasons, Mike. It's just been a pleasure sharing the screen with you today, as it has been our imaginary racetrack we're on right now. But please pass along my regards and respect to your teammates at the national office, and all of us at Racer love having you as a drafting partner in life.
Well, absolutely. And many thanks to Racer, Epartrade, and Speed Sport for allowing us to be part of such an elite body of experts. I told my wife I was going to be on an industry panel as an expert, and she said, "You?" And I said, yeah. I mean, some folks think I'm an expert. I'm just kidding.
You have been on 3 times, so when it's time to do a Hall of Fame Race Industry Week, you'll be inducted.
I want to be the one that presents.
That's right. You're very gracious. Thank you so much, team, for the opportunity. We appreciate to be part of the motorsports community. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Of course. Thank you very much.
Registering on Epartrade is easy. To start, click on the Join for Free button on the homepage. First, search your company to see if it's already in our database. If you see your company on the list, click on it to select it. Then, choose Claim Company if you are one of the decision makers, an owner, marketing person, or main company contact. Or choose Join Company if you are an employee, and press Continue. If you couldn't find your company in our database, select Register a New Company. On the following page, fill out your name, email, phone number, job title, and choose a secure password. If you chose Register a New Company, you'll need to choose your business type. Select Supplier if you're looking to display products or services and connect with buyers. Choose Racing Business if you're looking to source new parts and connect with suppliers. Choose Race Team if you own or are a member of a professional race team. Then, enter your company name. Please provide a website, Facebook page, or LinkedIn if you have one, and choose to either claim or join the company. You can view and agree to our terms of use here. If you'd like to receive our weekly newsletter, choose Accept. Finally, click Register Now and your registration will be submitted for approval. An email will be sent to your inbox. Please confirm your email address and you will be approved shortly. Welcome to Epartrade.